Hi, I'm Pam Hammerling, and for today's project we are going to repurpose, kind of, so to speak, or paint over existing cards that we already have made. So you've made some handmade cards in the past and you're like, I don't really like them and I don't want to send them to anybody because they're okay, but they're not what I really like. So I have a bunch like that. I made a ton a few years ago. Well, I make them all the time, but I made a ton a few years ago when I was doing an art show and I wanted to have lots of cards to sell. Well, a few years have passed and I look through them now and I think, they're okay, but they're not great. So what can I do to make them better? So in today's video, we're going to take cards that we already have created and paint over the top of them. Now, you could do all kinds of things. You could collage over them. You could just use kind of scrapbooking materials to paste or tape over something that you don't like. You could use stamps. It doesn't have to be paint, but in this example, my hope is that it will get you thinking like, oh yeah, I don't like that so much, but I bet I could redo it again. So I do this all the time because the further past something we get, at the time we might really like it, but then down the road we might think, I don't really like it the way I used to. So here's what I'm going to show you the cards we're going to do. I did run into some technical difficulties today in that I was not paying attention and the camera stopped running. So I've had to make several more than I had planned. So I planned to do 3 and that's all that you're going to see on video, but I did 2 more that were not on video that I'm just going to show you. So we turn one into a birthday card, and I've made because I'm working on the actual, okay, this I hope has a sheen probably, but I'm working on the card. It's already let me grab something here. So usually I work off small pieces like this, and then when I'm all done painting and everything's dry, I attach it to the top of a card. In this case, it's already attached, and I am trying to carefully paint around it. Well, unfortunately, what happened was I got a smudge of paint down here on this card, and so I just went with it and I painted a pattern around the edge. Now, that's not something I would normally do, but for the sake of, like, let's just figure this out, let's just make this work, I went ahead and did that. And I wanted you to see that on screen so that you would know that, not everything is going to turn out exactly the way you want. Sure, I could have thrown it out and started from scratch, but I wanted to show you the process of making something, turning something around. So then the next one I made was just a vase of flowers. Now these are so simple to do. It's like literally, a simple shape and then a bunch of dots, and then there you have a vase of flowers. Now this is the one you're going to see on camera. This is the one I did that you will not see, but it's very similar to the one I did do. But there you go. And then the last one was a coffee cup. Now the reason I do these shapes is they're very easy. They're very simple shapes. They don't require a lot of thinking or sketching. I just draw down a really basic shape and then I let the paint do its work, and I scrape, and I don't need it to be perfect. So this is the one you're going to see on camera, and this is the one that I made that was not on camera. So I hope that you look through the things that you have made and created, and if you're not happy with them and you have a way, whether it's cards or canvas or whatever kind of art journal, whatever, that you will go through those and say, hey, what can I do to make it look better now that I'm really looking at it? Because you could throw those out or whatever, but it's fun to rework something and it makes a lot of sense. So you already have half the work done. You have it attached to the card, you have all the materials. So I hope that you are inspired to create something and to paint over and rework something that you already have. Have fun and enjoy, and I hope you're inspired to rework one of your projects. See you next time. like I talked about in the video, introduction video, I'm going to remake these 3 cards. I like them okay, and sometimes you can like something at the time and then want to go over them. So I find that I tend to use a lot of darker paints, and I don't have a lot of value changes, which means lights to dark. And so sometimes when you're looking at the card, you have to be up close to really get the full feel or vibe of it. So I'm going to paint over these cards, and I think I'm going to like them a lot better, and I'll be able to use them in the future. So, and also, I think it's a good idea in general, if you make something that you don't like necessarily, there's nothing wrong with going back later and adjusting it or making some changes on it. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this project. It's like, take what you have, and maybe there's something about it you don't like, and try to figure out a way to rework it. So that is what we're going to do today. So I'm just going to start with each one. Each one is going to be slightly different, and I'm going to work in fast forward. I'm going to show you a little bit of what I'm going to use. I'm mostly just going to draw a simple sketch over the paint, and you'll see that in the process, just with this Stabilo or maybe a pen, just a regular, graphite pencil. And then I'm going to just paint over it very loosely using a mixture. This is a new paintbrush I'm using. This is fancy. Look at that. But these other ones are well worn and well loved. I'm going to keep it fairly simple. I mean, I do have a range of colors. I'm going to use a couple greens and a couple blues. The Payne's Gray, which is a dark blue, and a teal. I'm going to use some neutrals like the raw umber and a white, titanium white. And then I'm going to add in a few colors with violet oxide and yellow oxide. Now, as I'm working, and then of course I'll use just the heavier body paint as well. I'm not so certain. I have my supplies around me. I may use or bring in some other things as I'm going about it, and if so, I will talk to you at the end if I do that, or if it seems like there's anything that needs explaining. For the most part, I'm going to work in fast forward, and you can just kind of see the process. I think, like I said before, the goal is just to show you how to rework some things that you have on hand that maybe you do or don't like. So, okay, let's get started. Okay, so now as you can see, I made a total. Okay, so when you're remaking your cards, obviously I'm leaving this top piece, which I have taped on, and I'm painting over it. Normally I would not work like this. Normally I take the piece, and let me grab one real quick to show you what I would do. I would grab a piece like this, and I would work on top of that, and then I would adhere it to the card. Okay, so I'm working, and I'm having to be a little bit more careful because I do not want to get it on this white. As you saw in the video, I got it on the white, and then I tried to wipe it, which was a big mistake. It would have been better if I just left it. But then I just decided, hey, I'm just going to go with it and I'm going to create a border around the edge. This is not ideal. This is not necessarily the look I would go for, but I'm just telling you that this is a way that you can make it work. And I think the card turns out fine. I would send this to somebody. You know, obviously, yeah, there's mistakes. I think it is handmade, and there's things that you can do. And yeah, I could have thrown it away and just said, screw it, I'll do a whole different one. But I decided, what would I do? How can I problem solve this? How can I work within the mistake that I made and show, you know, continue to move forward? So I hope that through this you see that, yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, particularly when you're reworking something. Certainly if this was brand new and I wanted to sell it, this wouldn't work. I would have had to start over. But if I was going to sell it, or if I was going to create something that I was, that I was really wanting to look, well pulled together, I would have not, been working on the card, and then I would have just bagged the whole thing. But in this case, I feel like for most people, if I'm sending them a birthday card, they know it's handmade, and if they see that little smudge, it just, affirms the fact that, yeah, it is handmade. It's not, it isn't store-bought. So I don't think it necessarily detracts. It definitely is something that I wouldn't have done otherwise. But I hope that you guys see from this that sometimes you have to roll with your mistakes, and that it isn't going to be perfect. And for the most part, I'm okay with that. If it had been a big smear, I don't know, because this, unfortunately, this is just really lightweight cardstock, and to put paint directly on it, it would kind of warp, and it probably wouldn't have worked. So that wouldn't have been an option necessarily. Yes, I could peel this off. It's a little tricky to do that, and I would rather just try to rework the cards as they are. So I just wanted to kind of give you an explanation of what happened during that process. I did not see that coming, and I planned to go directly into the next card, but then I paused and I thought, no, we need to kind of talk about this little spot right here. So anyway, we're going to move on to the next one, and I'm going to do some flowers in a vase. For the next card, I'm going to use this one and create flowers in a vase. So we'll work over the top of this and see what happens. So let's get started. Okay, so our vase with flowers is finished, and I was able to carefully work so I did not get any on the outside of that on the card. So you can see how quick and easy that is. It was nothing detailed, a bunch of dots for flowers, just a simple sketch, and just like really roughly painted in. So it's very simple to do, and I hope you'll think about just creating a vase of flowers of your own. So let's move on to the next one, which is, I'm going to rework this card and into a, like a coffee cup or mug or something like that. So let's get started. Okay, now our coffee mug is finished. So I did not get any paint around the outside, which was kind of tricky on this one because I was scraping and doing some other things. So as you can see though, it's a very simple design. It's not accurate by any stretch of the imagination, but it kind of gives the image of a coffee mug. And I think that would be a fun card to send to someone, or tea, coffee or tea or whatever. So I hope that this gets you thinking creatively in terms of redoing any project that you have that you do not like, that you can just like sit with it for a while and then say, okay, this isn't really working for me, so how can I make it into something that does work for me? So I hope that you will be encouraged and inspired to rework a project or a craft or a art project of your own, and be confident, because what's the worst thing that can happen is that you just can do it over again. Nothing wrong with that. So have fun, enjoy, and be inspired.